Hey everybody, this is Zachary Jeans. Let's keep walking through the Bible. So today is day 422. We are on episode 422. Thanks so much for walking with me. We are in 2 Samuel, and Lord willing, we'll be looking at chapters 8 through 10 today. So I want you to take a moment after we're done talking and praying here to go ahead and hit that pause button and listen or read that section of scripture, 2 Samuel chapter 8 through 10. And of course, you can always go to esv.org and download the Bible app, or just go to the website and you can click on the little audio button at the bottom and you can listen to the text. You go to the section where you want to listen, you hit the click on the text, and then you can hit the audio button, and they've got free audio there for the Bible. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for taking a chance on walking through the Bible with me. I know that we're covering a lot of scripture and we don't always get into it to the depth that we would like to, but we are covering it with some depth, more so than just a plain read through, and I appreciate you taking the time to get in the Word. So why don't we stop? Why don't we pray? And again, take some time to actually read the text, because we won't always get a chance to read every line or every word, okay? All right. Lord, I love you. God, thanks for your protection, your love, your care, your mercy. God, this is a broken world, and there are times when we got to rise up and fight back. There are times when we can evade conflict and see your hand work. And God, David, as a king, God, is stuck in these situations where sometimes it's full-on conflict and war, and sometimes it's step back and be diplomatic, Lord. And God, I just pray that you would give us the wisdom to know when we need to step up and when we need to step around. Lord, I lay this time before you. God, please fill us with your Spirit. Please open up our eyes to your word. And we just lay this at your feet, Jesus. Amen. Okay. All right. So hopefully you've taken some time to get in the word. And we are going to take chapter 8, verse 1, and we'll start there. So now we're getting into David sort of like taking over the land, right? Fighting back the enemies. So chapter 8, verse 1. After this, David defeated the Philistines and subdued them. And David took Mephibosheth out of the hand of the Philistines. It's a little land area. And he defeated Moab, and he measured them with a line, making them lie down on the ground. 2 lines he measured to be put to death, and 1 full line to be spared. And the Moabites became servants to David and brought tribute. Now, I'm not going to just race over that. I want to stop. Our sensibilities about, justice and mercy and benevolence, being in a position of authority and power as a nation, and how you treat your enemies, especially those that you've defeated, are our rules of modern warfare, are not the rules of the history of humankind. We have a very much sterilized version of history, even for those that I think that definitely the settlers and some of the folks who came across the United States, they've caught some flack for their rough dealings with Native peoples. At the same time, what gets covered up in all that is that some of those Native peoples weren't so nice to one another before, right? There's some pretty brutal history there. So my point is that in how we look back at things, sometimes we judge it through the modern lens of our current day of what's okay and what's not okay. David is pretty harsh. This reminds me of a scene in a Marvel movie where Thanos, the evil antagonist of the movie, is trying to conquer the universe, and he wants to gather up all the power into this gauntlet, you know, and he wants to be able to snap his fingers and cut the population of the universe in half to better supply those that are alive with the resources they need to live an abundant life. This is his goal. And so in one scene, he's on a planet where they're conquering the planet, and he doesn't have that power yet to just snap his fingers. So they're actually conquering planets and wiping out genocide, like of various alien races across the universe. And he's on this planet where one of the characters who will become an adult, Gamora, this young woman, she's a child in this. And there's a scene where he's drawing her attention to him, and he's got a little knife on his big fat finger, and he's like balancing and showing how beautiful it is. And, you know, he's balancing this knife, and it doesn't fall left, it doesn't fall right. You know, he's got the balance that he's got it. But behind him, there's this scene of his, you know, sort of demon soldier guys with their plasma weapons. He's got like half of her people lined up on one side and half of them lined up on the other, and the people on one side, they get obliterated and taken out, and the other people are allowed to live, but under the authority and fear of Thanos and his armies. So that's a very stark image, but it's something that you could literally pull up on YouTube and watch that scene and sort of get a visualization of kind of what's going on here. David has enemies, and you're like, that's really harsh to draw a line. And those on one side, half of them he slaughters, he has them killed, and half of them he shows mercy. Mind you, the command that was given to Joshua and to all the people of Israel that were going up into this place was that God was judging those nations that were in that area for all their sins and evils, child sacrifice and brutal behavior and horrible demonic stuff, like not to mention the whole concept of the Nephilim and their descendants, the offspring of the Nephilim in the area that are written about. I mean, Goliath was one, and the Anakim and all that was in the area. So it was this whole, like, God was sending in this people group, Israel, to go judge this area after 430-ish years. Okay. And then we had the period of the judges, and like we're hundreds and hundreds of years removed. And the back and forth between these nations and Israel have gone on, but all the while God had told them to clear out these people. And that's really, really harsh. And I'm not saying it's easy to swallow, but this was the command. And David, in a way, isn't doing that. He's taking over these areas that were meant to be pushed out and wiped out, and he's not. And it's actually going to come around to bite the children of Israel down the line. Do I think this is okay in modern day? No. And I don't know. I don't want to draw this parallel to the current conflict over there. I think that they're trying to work this out, believe it or not, in a more strategic way than this, you know. So I'm not saying it's easy to process what David did here. But nonetheless, in a way, he's not even abiding in what God had told them to do in the first place, which is to move them all out. So, I digress. Again, not apologizing for the Bible. This is what the Bible says. I think that in the end of days, we're going to see some harshness that makes this look trivial. Not that it doesn't have meaning, but the grand scale, if you read Revelation and the judgments that'll happen against the world, both by the hand of God and by the hand of the enemy on behalf of the Lord working out the end times, it's going to be rough. But as we pass from this life into the next, We have the opportunity to be right with the Lord and to move in out of a sinful world into the presence of God, because Jesus took on himself all the punishment that we deserved, all the judgment to the left and the right, the dividing. And if you choose to entrust yourself to God through Jesus Christ, you'll be passed from death to life rather than from this death to death, to judgment. So I think it's a really powerful illustration here, verse 2. And, you could just read over it. It's just one verse. So anyway, David goes on to conquer. And again, I hope you've read, because we're going to pass past this. Conquers them all. Various people pay tribute. All the nations realize, holy crap, David's for real. Like, he's not some, like, pretty powerful, but, equal king. Like, God is with him. And everywhere he fights, every time a nation will rise up against Israel, they lose. They just straight up lose. Okay. So let's come down to chapter 9, verse 1. We're going to talk about Mephibosheth. So we mentioned Mephibosheth, I did the other day. And I thought, in my head, I was teaching forward, and I should have just looked at the text, because this is the passage I was referencing. And let's talk about it. David said, verse 1, "Is there still anyone left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Okay, so, most of Saul's family is gone. They've either been killed or been exiled or whatever. But he wants to know, like, look, I'm in a position of authority and power. Now I can be merciful. And anybody I can show mercy to for Jonathan's sake. He loved Jonathan. He's like the closest of closest brothers. And the guy who would have been king in his stead had not Saul screwed up with God. Now there was a servant in the house of Saul whose name was Ziba. And they called him to David, and the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" And he said, "I am, your servant." The king said, "Is there not still someone of the house of Saul, that may show kindness of God to him?" Ziba said to the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in his feet." The king said to him, "Where is he?" And Ziba said to the king, "He is in the house of Machir, son of Amiel, at Lo-debar." So King David sent and brought him from the house of Machir to the son of Amiel at Lo-debar. He called him up. He's like, "Hey, come on up here." So Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, son of Saul, came to David and fell on his face and paid homage. David said, "Mephibosheth." And he answered, "Behold, I'm your servant." David said, "Don't fear, for I will show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I'll restore to you all the land of Saul, your father, and you shall eat at my table always." And he paid homage and said, "What is your servant, that you should show regard for a dead dog such as I?" Now, this whole courtier sort of customary language, why is he referring to himself this way when David's not referring to him that way? And what's this back and forth all about? This is how you have to behave in society in certain situations. We have all this independence in America, especially, and we're all equal under the eyes of the Constitution, supposedly. Lord willing, we should be. So we have this equality where, who are you? Who am I? We're all equals to some degree. Some people try to play some sort of society card, but, they play that and they know it's all kind of fake BS anyway, because, they know how other people look at them. So we're all on sort of level playing ground in our society. This isn't the case in all societies around the world, and it's not the case of society back in the day. And you can not like that or hate it, just like we were talking about the way war was waged in the time of David and in the past. But that's the way it was. So Mephibosheth, most times kings would just literally hunt down everybody from the household of the previous king, have them all wiped out, Game of Thrones style, right? Just wipe them out. And Saul's family had definitely faced a lot of retribution themselves, and many of them had died off. But Mephibosheth, with his crippled feet, had managed to eke out a life living in the house of another person, has a wife, at least a kid, and David shows him kindness, and though Mephibosheth, says like, I'm a dog. Why are you going to even pay attention to me? And also, mind you, many of you are dog people. You treat your dogs like your kids, and you let them kiss your face, and all this, right? Well, dogs are they are an unclean animal in the eyes of the people of, especially back east, Middle East. And in fact, it's kind of an issue in the world that I work in, rideshare. Many of the people who drive are immigrants that are getting their first job here, and they're from a Muslim country, and they view dogs as unclean animals, like literally religiously dirty animals that they aren't allowed to engage with in sort of a close setting, especially around holy situations, or but in their day-to-day life. And so I know my company that I work for will send out emails telling them, they don't tell them, but they tell everybody and you who have this issue, by law, if somebody has a service animal, a dog, you by law have to let them in your car. But what happens is, more often than not, the driver will pull up with this religious background that considers dogs like religiously dirty, like it's an evil thing. And they'll show up and they'll look at the blind person with their walking dog and their service animal, and they'll just go, no, you can't bring the dog. And the person's like, no, you have to let me. And then they're like, no, you can't bring the dog. And then they'll just turn down the ride. And then the person, rightly so, gets a hold of Lyft or Uber and complains and says, you're violating the law. And then Lyft and Uber is like, hey, you have to do this. And they're like, hey, it's my religious ideology, I can't do it. Or they just won't say anything at all. They're like, we're an independent contractor, we don't have to give any rights. So anyway, this issue of dogs, he's like, who am I? Am I, just this dirty dog? Who am I to be in your presence, God? Or not God, but David, God's anointed. And in this attitude, you think, well, this is a long time ago. No, it's happening right here today. It's something that comes up daily, just around you. So anyway, Ziba said to the king, according to all that my lord the king commands, the servant will do. David had commanded Ziba to basically take over responsibility for all the land, and gave Ziba, in a lot of ways, a reward. It's not just giving him another job. Ziba has a bunch of kids. He has a huge family himself, the servant of Saul, that have been allowed to continue to live and serve in the house of David. And he said, you know what? I'm going to give you charge over Mephibosheth's land, Saul's land, and you and your family, and you'll work it. You'll get the produce and benefit of living that life, but you're going to give the profits to Mephibosheth, okay? And Mephibosheth, you aren't going to go work out in these fields, okay, with your crippled feet. You're going to come and you're going to sit at my table in the king's palace or in the king's house, right? And you're going to eat dinner with us just like you're one of my sons. And that's what he did. That's what he did. So Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, for he ate always at the king's table, even though he was lame in both of his feet. And we'll see Mephibosheth again when David gets run out by one of his sons. Mephibosheth honors David, even though David was kicked out by one of his sons. So chapter 10, let's go down to chapter 10. So verse 1, after this, the king of the Ammonites died, and Hanun, his son, reigned in his place. Okay, so king of Ammonites dies, son rises up in a position of authority, and David said, I will deal loyally with Hanun, the son of Nashish, as his father dealt loyally with me. As you remember, David had to flee Saul, and he needed a place to go, and this guy was good to David. He didn't just like have him and his people killed. So David sent by his servants to console him concerning his father. And David's servants came into the land of the Ammonites. But the princes of the Ammonites said to Hanun, their lord, do you think, because David has sent comforters to you, that he is honoring your father? Has not David sent his messengers to you, search the city and spy it out and overthrow it? So they sowed seeds of doubt, discord. They attacked him with fear, right? And so this son is like, oh my goodness, wait, you're right. You know, maybe this is the case. Maybe David's really just figuring out a way to, you know, cover his compassion, or cover with compassion his evil plans. Now, mind you, this is the way that this stuff happens. This is real spy work, though. This is how this stuff happens, and we'll see it happen throughout the Bible. Okay, but in this case, David truly was sending them over as an act of compassion. You know, like, hey, we're sorry your dad's dead. What can we do? How can we bless you? Okay, so Hanun took David's servants and shaved off half the beard of each and cut off their garments in the middle at their hips. And he sent them away. So he completely humiliates them. When it was told David, he sent to meet them, for the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, remain at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then return. When the Ammonites saw that they had become a stench to David, yeah, he pretty much did. What a stupid move, right? The Ammonites sent and hired the Syrians of Beth Rehob and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 foot soldiers. It's no small amount of soldiers, right? And the king of Maacah with 1,000 men, and the men of Tob, 12,000 men. David heard of it. He sent Joab and all the hosts of the mighty men, and the Ammonites came out and drew up in battle array at the entrance of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah and Rehob and the men of Tob and Maacah were themselves in the open country. So he's got enemies on both sides. When Joab saw the battle was set against him both in front and rear, he chose some of the best men of Israel and arrayed them against the Syrians. So he took his special forces and set them against the Syrians. The rest of his men he put in charge of Abishai, his brother, and he arrayed them against the Ammonites. And he said, if the Syrians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, then I'll come and help you. Be of good courage. Let us be courageous for our people and for the cities of our God. And may the Lord do what seems good to him. They're going to go fight with everything they got. They're going to use strategy. They're going to have a plan, right? They're going to lift their swords and their bows and arrows and fight. But at the end here, where are they putting their trust? They're putting themselves into the hands of the Lord. Audibly, the writing that's being written down, recorded for all time in history in the Bible. Where is their trust? Well, are they totally trusting in their ability to fight this battle, even with their special forces and their bigger army fighting the other side, and their plan to help each other out if this or that happens? No, their total trust ultimately is we're going to be courageous. We're going to fight with everything we got, but our trust is in the Lord. We're going to put ourselves into the hands of the Lord. Whatever seems good to the Lord to do, he'll do. We're going to live with those decisions. So far as it depends on us, we do what we can. But at the end of the day, We trust ourselves to the Lord, not in some sort of just wispy way, throwing it out to the ether. No, we entrust ourselves personally through prayer to God in the presence of others. Lord, we're in your hands. Okay? So, well, Joab and the people who were with him drew near to the battle of Syrians, and they fled before him. And when the Ammonites saw that the Syrians fled, they likewise fled before Abishai and entered the city. Then Joab returned from fighting against the Ammonites, came to Jerusalem. But when the Syrians saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they gathered themselves together. And Hadadezer sent and brought out the Syrians who were beyond the Euphrates. They came to Helam, and Shobach, the commander of the army of Hadadezer, at their head. And when it was told David, he gathered all Israel together and crossed the Jordan and came to Helam. And the Syrians arrayed themselves against David and fought with him. And the Syrians fled before Israel. And David killed the Syrians, the men of 700 chariots and 40,000 horsemen, and wounded Shobach, the commander of their army. So he died there. And when all the kings who were servants of Hadadezer saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they made peace with Israel, became subject to him. So the Syrians were afraid to save the Ammonites anymore. Syrians were the ones that had been hired in to come help out the Ammonites. And they basically, what happened is when Joab had said, like Abishai, his brother, he's like, you fight this side, I'll fight that side. And then when both sides kind of fled, they kind of regrouped and like, okay, we're bringing the whole army down, right? Not just some hired, soldiers, some mercenaries. We're bringing the whole thing. So David rounds up everybody and says, look, we're going to war full on. Not some minor conflict. We're going to war. And he won. And it was peace through strength. So these are things which are hard for an individual Christian to process, right? Like you're like, how should I treat my neighbor? Golden rule, man. What's the right thing to do? Well, treat your brother with love, respect, humility. Treat them as you'd want to be treated. And but then we try to transfer the personal stuff, how we should deal with one another on a daily basis, into the authority structure of a government, let alone a government that's a royalty situation with kings and queens and all that. And, there's no democracy. We try to shift our mind into that and into the past and then go, well, what would Jesus do? And it's like, well, what would Jesus do? Jesus, the man, walking the streets of Jerusalem, talking to kids about salvation and healing people, is not the government that rests on his shoulders when he comes with his armies from heaven, where he will be acting like a king. Okay? So on the day-to-day, we're to follow Jesus as he is, walking up and down the countryside of Israel, preaching the good news, living life, doing right by others, and turning the other cheek. But when we come back with him, with the heavenly armies of angels, and the great battle will occur, and the judgment of the world, and all of that's kind of like what's going on here on a much smaller scale with David and Israel fighting off the other nations, right? Can you see that facsimile, that difference? I really encourage you to go read 2 Thessalonians. Read the first, go read all of Revelation. Read Matthew chapter 24 and 25. Get a sense for the grand scale of what's coming. Jesus Christ is coming back. He's not some sort of ethereal sort of consciousness awakening, some sort of revelation of self, some belief that we are God, right? No. God is coming back in the person of Jesus on behalf of the Father, in the power of God's Spirit, with the holy angels, these dimensionally different transferring powers that represent the creator of the universe, doing war against the fallen angels and wrapping up things with all the nations of the earth that were going to rise up like Syria did here. And they're going to be subdued. That is what will happen. And it's coming sooner than most people think. I don't know what day, I don't know what hour. Only the Father in heaven knows. But it is coming. So, trust yourself to the Lord. Trust yourself to the Lord. Okay. All right. Hey, until next time, God bless you. Keep walking, okay? Amen. Bye-bye.